Awesome. I just feel like I need to take a few moments because we cannot find Richard. I thank you so much for being back from lunch on time. You know, the Master Circle always runs on time. Everything has a meaning and a place. Paying attention to the details are important. It's the little things that make the big things big. We've got a lot left to do today. You've been amazing up until this point. Let's finish on that note. Are we all in agreement on that? Yes or yes? Yes. Excellent. So I hate to say the expression without further ado because I've yet to meet anybody who knows what ado is. But here is the one and only Richard Flint.
I only got an hour, so sit down. It's not often I get to be Dr. Hoffman's warm-up act. Hey, I want you to write something down for me because I want you to do something for me. This past Wednesday, we introduced a new website, our brand new website, and it's just richardflint.com. And there are 3 reasons I want you to go there and just look at it. Number 1, you're not aware of all the different things we do. And we have a radio show every month that's broadcast over our internet. Number 2, when you go to the website and you sign in, I'm going to send you a little CD entitled Exiting the Rat Race, How to Slow Your Life Down. Because some of you live way too fast. And then the third reason I want you to do it is because starting a little later this summer, we're going to start a 6-month series of free webinars. And these are going to deal with topics that you wrestle with every day. We're going to talk about things like procrastination, disorganization, fear, and we're going to have 6 months of just free webinars for you that you could attend or your whole office could be a part of, and they'll be 45 minutes to an hour webinars. So go to richardflint.com and just sign in and experience some of the things that we're doing. I think you'll have a lot of fun there. It's a great website. I just really like it. Yesterday, we spent our time talking about you as a person. And what I want to do today in the time that we have, I want to talk to you about this topic, the value of leadership. See, here's what you and I have to understand. In every company, there is a leader. But sometimes that leader is not the owner. It's the person they abdicate to. And what happens when the leader who should be the leader is not the leader? The braves run wild. And all of a sudden, you've got all these emotional collisions that are going on. So I want to go inside your head for the time that I have, and I want to play with you about this subject, the value of leadership. Now, I'm going to give you some terms. I don't ever go anywhere without giving some terms, because if I don't set you up mentally, you won't understand what I'm talking about. So here are the terms I'd like for it defined for you this afternoon. Leader. It's a very, very fascinating word when you take it apart. But the simple definition is easy. The person who has the responsibility to lead. I mean, isn't that a simple definition? But it's also very complex. Because that person who has the responsibility to lead has a responsibility to do 4 things. To listen. And one of the things I've found about a lot of you, you're not good listeners when it comes to your staff. That they're there to take care of you in many ways, not to help you grow the practice. And I learned from my staff, if I don't listen, I miss a lot of opportunities. I mean, I live in my head, folks. And I can have a staff meeting and I get to talking and I don't know when to shut up. And many times my staff will say, Richard, would you just shut up and let's deal with what's on our agenda? And I go, okay. Because I don't have any men on my staff. I've only had 2 men on my staff in 35 years, and the longest one lasted 27 hours. because I've got the most assertive group of females you'll ever meet in your life. And I've learned something. If I listen to them, I learn. You know why? They have more contact with my customers than I do. And is it ever possible that your staff has more contact in a different way than you do with your patients? That concept of being a leader also means that I have to enable people. Because your greatness of what you will become depends on the greatness of your staff. And if you don't enable them, you know what happens? The good ones will leave you. And the ones who just have a job, and may I define job for you? It's an environment that a human goes to every day where they prostitute themselves for a paycheck. And they just show up and they go through the day. But the good ones want to grow. They want to improve. They want to help you become better. And to do that, you got to create an environment where you're enabling them to be able to grow. To lead also means that I've got to be willing to adapt. You know what's interesting? Yesterday is yesterday. It's not today. Now, you can repeat it. And every day that you repeat yesterday, what happens? You keep your organization, you keep your practice trapped in yesterday. You ever been around someone who says, well, that's the way we've always done it? Well, it's worked for years. Why? Why mess things up? I love the statement, if it ain't broke, break it. Because I think you've always got to be searching for the ways to adapt your practice. Have you noticed that patients have a different agenda today? Any of you found them to be more impatient? Have you found them to be more conscious of time? And they want to be able to do business with you, but in a business that understands who they are and where they are today. It also means that this person who has the responsibility to lead must provide direction. Remember we talked about yesterday, you only have two choices. You go forward or you go in circles. And I'd venture to bet all the money in Dr. Hoffman's checking account that if I came and spent a day of your practice, I'd find probably 90% of you going in circles. Yet talking about what it is you want to achieve. Because it's much easier to stay in a circle than it is to go forward. Look at our second word. Leadership. Now, isn't this interesting? Because all it is leader with a ship behind it. I was doing a program with Carnival Cruise Line, and I don't do seminars at sea anymore because I'd spoken for the passengers and the crew. So no matter where I would go on that big ship, someone had a question for me. And I learned the only two places I could hide was a lifeboat or my cabin. And I was on the bridge with the captain, and I asked him a question. Hey, if you were to turn this ship around, what would it take? He said, Richard, to turn this ship around is 37 miles. I thought, wow. You have any idea how many companies I've walked into that want things to get better now? And they don't understand that for anything to improve is a process? I mean, how long has it taken you to mess things up? And you're not just going to walk in overnight and correct everything that you've done that's gotten you off course. So look at my definition. The process, and it's a process, folks. This is not a journey. This is a process of what? Moving people. You ever find people sometimes resistant to moving? You ever had someone on your staff you had to drag, you had to push, you had to pull? And it's exhausting, isn't it, to try to get some people to move? And what if you're a doctor and you bought a practice and you inherited a staff? And that staff is used to the person who was there. And you come in and you're energetic and you're excited and you're ready to take things forward, and they go, we've never done it that way. Have you ever hired an experienced CA? And man, you looked at their resume and you thought, man, this is great. This is what I've been looking for. And man, you hire them and you're all excited. First day they walk in, you're trying to help them understand, and they go, never done it that way. I mean, how challenging is it sometimes to move people? And when you talk about leading the ship, you talk about leadership, it's the process of moving people forward, because we sure don't want to go in circles. Through what? A consistent persistency balanced with a persistent consistency. To do what? That holds all people accountable for their behavior. See, here's a challenge with some of you. You just want to be the doctor. You just want to come in and do your thing. And sometimes what happens if you come in wanting to do your thing, but that thing doesn't involve the people being accountable for their behavior? Because when you're leading an organization and you own that practice, you are both the owner and the leader, which you shouldn't be. Because the role of the owner and the role of the leader is different. The owner is to create the vision. The leader's responsibility is to take the vision of the owner and bring it to and find the people and connect them with that vision so we can go forward. And what happens if you have to be the owner and the leader and you don't know which hat to wear? Because all of you on your staff, you need a person on your staff who is in control of your staff. And you get to be the doctor, but at the same time, you have to plan the vision of the organization. Because if there is no vision, you're going in circles. Look at the third word. Dysfunctional leader. My definition. One who has the responsibility to guide the organization forward, but refuses, and that's a very strong word in language, refuses to take the steps that will make this happen. I told you yesterday, I've never sat in a counseling room with anyone who didn't know the answer to the question they were asking me. You know what to do. There's not a one of you in this room that doesn't know what needs to be done to improve your practice. You know what to do. But how many times have you watched yourself stand there, know what to do, tell yourself, I need to do this, and then put it off till tomorrow? And by the time tomorrow gets here, what's happened? You got all these other things to do. So if I came and spent a day inside your practice, would I find any places where you could improve? If I sat and talked with your staff, could they give me ideas of where you need to improve? Because a dysfunctional leader is one who has the responsibility to guide the organization, but makes a choice. Because growth and lack of growth is a choice. It's not the economy. It's not your location. It is a choice. And a dysfunctional leader makes the choice to stare at what's not happening and not do anything about it. Value. Big word. And by the way, this is one of the buzzwords in society right now. How many times do you see this word or do you find people talking about value? It is one of the big buzzwords out there right now. And it is a customer-driven term. Look at my definition to value. The expressions of all the people that create a presence that is present when you're not present. How important is your receptionist? Is that person critical? Can they set an attitude for a patient before they even get there? I called a company in Anchorage, Alaska. I'm returning their phone call. Phone rings 4 times. Receptionist answers the phone, and this is her greeting to me, and I quote her verbatim. "What the hell do you want?" My response was, "Not to talk to you." She said, I'm sorry, I am not having a good day. I said, thank you for sharing it with me. Now, did she create a perception for me? I get to the owner of the company. He wants me to come to Anchorage and do a program on customer service. Huh? Any of you in this room ever showed up not having a good day? And if you're not having a good day, do you think you demonstrate that? You ever had somebody smile with their mouth and their eyes were telling you to go to hell? How many times are mistakes made because someone's not focused on what they're doing? And a bad day never happens within the practice. It's everything that goes on outside that you come to the practice and then you connect it with. Do you think it's ever possible that you can have a clique in a practice? And do you understand what a clique is? It's a group of insecure people bound together by their insecurities and led by the strongest of the insecure. Can a clique in a practice tear it apart? So what's our value? It's a positive expression of all the people, not just a few, but all the people that create a presence. Because when people come to you, they read, they feel, they sense, they understand your presence. That is present when you aren't present. Any of you ever gone somewhere, done business with someone, walked out and told yourself, I'll never go back there? When I went in the restaurant this morning, I made sure that waiter that waited on me yesterday was not my server this morning. Because I didn't want to stick my tongue out at him. Because I walked in this morning looking for him because I knew I did not want anything to do with him. And you have people in your life who, because of their negative attitude, you want nothing to do with. And I'll tell you something, doctors. I don't understand any of you who keep a negative person on your staff. I don't care how talented they are. I don't care what you think. You don't keep negative people because negative has only two things on its agenda: manipulation and control. That's all negative is about. So, here's my thought. Value is the result. It's not a happening, it's a result. Value is the result of the leader only supporting behavior that improves the organization. And that behavior is demonstrated through the connection of the staff with the customer, which is your patient. I'm going to tell you something. You have staff people who are not as good as they could be. And the only reason they're not as good as they could be is because you give them permission not to be. I think the behavior of all people is consistent with the design of the organization. People in your office are not because they are because you give them permission to be who they are. And I don't understand why, if you really care about your practice, if you really want it to grow, I don't understand why you would tolerate anyone whose presence is designed to weaken the presence of your practice. So, when we talk about the value of leadership, what does that mean? It looks for ways for the practice, for the company to improve. They're never satisfied with where the company is. They know there's still more to achieve. When you look at your practice, are there still things you want to achieve? Are there still things that, man, when you think about them, they just put chili bumps down your back? And you look at your practice and you see what you can become, and it creates a sense of excitement because you've got to always be looking for the ways to improve. The environment has a sense of harmony. This is critically important. In order for there to be harmony inside the walls of your practice, there has to be a connection at three things. We have a common purpose. We come here in harmony because we have a purpose. We want to provide the best care we can provide. There has to be a common agenda, because if there's not a common agenda, there's no communication. When I was on the church staff and did marriage counseling, The thing that I saw that broke a lot of relationships apart was that there wasn't a common agenda. It was he said, she said. And as long as there's a lack of a common agenda, there is no communication. And by the way, just for your own information, I've had people tell me over the years, I don't love him, I don't love her anymore. That is not true. You never fall out of love with the person you've been in love with. You fall out of love with what the relationship has deteriorated to. And isn't that the result of a lack of a connection at purpose, at agenda, and at commitment? Because what binds people together in harmony is that we have a shared purpose, we have a shared agenda, and we have a shared commitment, and we are in this together. Value of leadership always leads, doesn't participate in the confusion. They understand, the leader understands there will always be a leader, and that leader must be them. It can't be someone else on the staff. Delivers on their promises. This is huge. They understand a broken promise lessens the trust people have in them. When I would talk with couples and they would ask me, Richard, what do you think is the most important thing in a relationship? I'd tell them trust. Because isn't trust a solid foundation you can stand anything on? And as long as you have trust, you have a strength of connection. But what happens when the trust is broken? There's cracks in it. What fills the cracks? Worry, doubt, skepticism, uncertainty. And when trust is broken, isn't there pain involved with that? So if you break a promise to a patient, you break a promise to a staff member, you break a promise, aren't you lessening the respect that people have for you? Encourager. They understand people need attention, and to feel their presence is making a difference. I have said this for 35 years. Number one thing a human life wants to know is that they matter. It is the most important thing in a human life, is that they know that they matter. And that's not words, correct? That's a demonstration through behavior. Letting someone know that they matter is not simply a statement. It is behavior that demonstrates the fact that they're important and they bring value to your life. Refuse to lower the standards. They understand every time they lower the standard of quality, they devalue their reputation. Here's a concern I have for our society today. What used to be great today is good, but we call it great. What used to be good today is average, but we call it good. What used to be average is poor, but we call it average. You know why? Because most of the time we don't like confrontation. We don't like dealing with emotional issues, so what do? We just keep tolerating and lowering things in order to not have to deal with people. Folks, your reputation is at stake. And do you understand what your reputation is? It's what I feel about you and your practice after I've experienced you. It's not while I'm experiencing you. Stands tall through their presence. They understand their presence commands respect through their behavior. Do you understand what respect is? It's the feeling that I can trust you. It's the feeling that says, I can believe in what you say. And if someone you don't respect, do you listen to them? I don't. If you don't trust somebody, do you believe in them? I don't. So how important is it inside your practice there's trust between the staff and the doctor? How important is that? How important is it that you don't just open your mouth and make statements you haven't thought about yet? Huh? The value of leadership has a clear vision of the future. They understand they must spend today preparing for the future. Any of you ever had a day that was going great until you got out of bed? You ever had this happen to you? You get up in the morning, you tell yourself, I'm going to have a great day. I'm going to go down to my practice, and we're going to have the best day we've ever had. And man, you are pumped. You get there and you're happy and you're feeling good and you open the front door and first person looks at you goes, we got a problem. Do you think that can suck the energy out of you? Do you understand how owning a business operates? You got little plugs all over your body. You didn't know that, did you? And every day when you show up, first of all, there's your staff with their little umbilical cords. And they walk in and they just plug into you. You ever had this done to you? And all of a sudden, in the middle of the day, you feel yourself just, and you got these shakes. And you can't figure out what's going on. Well, that's your staff draining you. Then you got patients that walk in the front door, and they've got umbilical cords. And they walk over, and they plug in. See, here's the challenge we have today. Some of these people you can't get rid of because they have extension cords. How exhausting can your day become with people? You ever wanted to run away? You ever wanted to go crawl under your desk in the fetal position? You ever had a day where you just didn't feel good because you were overwhelmed with all the people things you had to deal with? Why do you deal with people issues? Because you don't confront them. Remember what I said to you yesterday? Anything in life you don't confront, you validate. Anything in life you don't confront, you validate. And how in the world am I going to have a clear vision of growth when every day I'm dealing with conflict in my office? How many days is it going to be challenging for me to be the leader when all of a sudden I'm dealing with all these issues? You ever seen a doctor that was fearful of firing someone? You ever hung on to someone you knew you needed to get rid of? And people ask me, well, how do you know when it's time to terminate someone? Two things, only two things. You try to create a positive environment, and they keep bringing a negative spirit. You ever had someone on your staff that every time you had someone positive, they talked about why it wouldn't work? Or you have your meeting, and man, you talk about it, and you walk out, and they go to other people and go, well, that's sure a bunch of crap. Huh? You can't grow if there's not harmony. Or you know what happens? You take them at home with you at night in your head. You ever had baked staff person for dinner? You ever had staff person fricassee? I was here in this city, was brought here by a large company here in Chicago, and I was going to do a program for their sales force of about 2,000 people. Owner of the company came to me and says, hey, Flint, you eat out most of the time, don't you? I said, yes, sir, probably 99% of my meals I eat out. He said, my wife is a chef in one of the most popular restaurants here in Chicago, and she's got tomorrow night free, and she wants to know, how would you like a home-cooked meal? And your little heart just begins to pound. She said, you tell her what you want, and she'll fix it. Says, I'll pick you up at 6. Next evening, he picks me up. We go to his house. We walk in the front door, and he says, Richard, he says, dinner's not quite ready yet. And he says, I want to show you something. So he takes me to his private study in his house. And when we open the double doors into his study, you can't miss it, because symmetrically in the center of the wall is the largest dartboard you've ever seen in your life. Laying around the dartboard are pictures of his people. In the center of the dartboard is the picture of a young lady. He says, you see that young lady? Well, you couldn't see her because of the holes in her face. He said, that's my employee of the week. Serious question. Can you be the best you can be when you're distracted by people who should no longer be a part of what you're doing? Can you outgrow people? And what happens if you hang on to them? Because we live with this fear. There's not a lot of good people out there. May I bust your bubble? There's a lot of good people out there, but they wouldn't come to work for you because you're not a great organization. And only when you get better do you attract better people. And to do that, you have to have a clear picture of the future, a clear vision of knowing where you're going to go. Insist on quality in everything that is done. I threw the word at you yesterday, particular. You have to become more particular today than you've ever been. Because if someone is not working with you, they're working against you. Leaders don't tolerate. Leaders confront. Leaders don't hang on to people who don't share that common purpose, that common agenda, and that common commitment. They don't hang on to these people because their reputation is at stake. Value of leadership. Presentation of value is seen through the behavior of their people. Why is behavior important? What are my 3 words? Behavior never lies. People can say anything they want to say. Why, you can say anything you want about wanting to improve your practice, but the demonstration is your behavior. So my question to you is simple. Are you simply a collection of words? Are you really, really, really serious about improving your practice? You ever come to the Master Circle? You come here, you sit in all these classes, and you get all these ideas. And you're really excited about getting back and implementing. But on your way home, you talk yourself out of it. You ever done that? And what's our best way of doing that? Well, you know what? They're right, but this is not a good time to do that. Isn't that a justification? Isn't it amazing? If tomorrow is where you're going to start, you'll never get there. You need to take 3 things you've gathered from this weekend. You need to take 3 ideas, no more than 3. Prioritize them. And go back and work on those 3. When you achieve those 3, take the next 3. Why 3? Because the human mind sees in triangles. You ever gotten so much on your list you couldn't get to any of it? And by the way, how many of you do to-do list? Stop it. Because a to-do list is negative. Why? Because most of what you put on it, you don't want to do. You ever put something on your list you didn't want to do, and all day long you kept moving it down, got to the end of the day and told somebody, can't believe I didn't get that done. That's a lie. Folks, change one word and you change the structure and the power. It's not to do, it's to achieve. Let me tell you why. The word do is an emotional term. The word achieve is what your imagination feeds off of. Because every time you achieve, your mind and your imagination gets excited about the next thing. It's not to do, it's to achieve. And you have to understand, your value is defined by the behavior of your people. And if you let people be less than they can be, you're less than you can be. If you don't challenge people to step up, it's not their issue, it's yours. And you're really not serious about improving your practice. Because I'm going to suggest to you that to improve your practice is a 5-step process. And I want you to take this very, very seriously. Because it's not magic, folks. I don't know any magical formula about improving things. But I do understand what it takes to put your emphasis on moving forward. And there's 5 emphases. There's 5 steps. Number 1, very systematically examine where you are and what you need to do to increase your value. This just can't be a random thought. You've got to look at your practice. You've got to look at your practice through the eyes of honesty. You've got to see where we need to improve. And you've got to make your process to every day step up to increase your value. Because improvement is a process, it's not a happening. Now, how do we do this? Start with being honest with yourself. Serious question? Have you ever been guilty of lying to yourself about what you need to do to improve your practice? I'm serious. Have you ever just played a game with yourself so that you didn't have to be accountable for what needs to be done? And the very first step in increasing your value, it starts with being honest with yourself. No games. Alone with you, no one around you. You take an honest look at your practice and you ask yourself, where do we need to improve our value? And by the way, do you know where it will start with? You. You. Tackle this as an owner, not a leader. You understand, the decisions you make as a leader are different than the decisions you make as an owner. Someday, someplace, somehow, I'd love to share with you a new program we've just done, a new piece of research on ownership versus leadership. And the challenge for some of you, you try to be both and you can't. Because the owner is the visionary, the leader is the implementing person. And what happens if you have the vision and you're trying to implement it and the people are fighting you? You start doubting yourself. So you approach this as the owner. As the owner, where are we needing to improve? And when you put that with honesty, you create a picture. Examine why this is an issue. Why are we not doing this? I had dinner last night with one of my good friends. He was the third mentoring student that I have. He lives here in Chicago. His name is Dr. Ted Garrick, and Ted is a world-renowned reconstruction dentist. People come to him who have had facial cancer or distorted face, and he comes to and he reconstructs. We were sitting at dinner last night, and he let me know about his assistant he had for 13 years that he let go. He said, Richard, he said, when I started pulling things apart, I realized that I had become comfortable with her, didn't challenge her, so I gave her freedom to do everything she wanted to do, and I didn't realize that she was working against me. You think that was tough for him to let her go? You know his fear? How am I going to find a replacement for her? But he took the unknown as adventure. He made the decision and he stepped into it. And yesterday afternoon, he interviewed a lady that accepted his offer who is probably twice as good as the young lady he let go. You got to get over your fear of not being able to attract quality people. If you're quality at what you do, quality people come. Plan before you start. Don't run to the edge of the cliff and jump without doing your research and then scream for help. You ever called your coach here at the Master's Circle going, help? And the reason you needed help was because you did something real dumb. And then you wanted somebody to bail you out. Listen, you did the dumb thing, so clean it up. When my people call me that I work as a mentor to, and they're screaming for help because they've messed something up, my response is very simple. Well, what are you going to do? Well, I need you to help me. Sorry. If I help you, you don't learn. So let's ask the questions to you. Step number 2. Address your areas of value enhancement, not as change, but as improvement. That will increase your value to your customers, to your patients. It's not about what you need to change, but what you must do to increase your value. I'm going to challenge you. Take the word change out of your vocabulary. Information in your life only comes in two ways. It comes in through your emotions. If it comes in through your emotions, it's got to work through all the fear. And 99% of the time, it'll never get to your imagination. You'll block it. But if it comes in through your imagination, it's not change, it's improvement. Your mind wants to improve. Your mind wants to grow. Your mind wants you to be better. And it can do that if you get out of the way. So when you look at where you need to go in value, don't look at it as what we need to change. Look at it as this is what we need to do to improve. Now, how do we do this? State the purpose of the action. You remember my definition of purpose? The reason you do what you do. Why do we need to do this? Why do I need to address this? What is the purpose of taking this action? If you can't figure out the purpose, you're lost. Take the enhancement at a manageable pace. You ever had a time in your life when you wanted what you wanted right now? Listen, for every year it's taken you to mess your practice up, it'll take you 2.5 years to clean it up. Some of you might not live that long. It's not overnight. Because it's not as simple as going in and saying this is how we're going to do it. It's addressing and understanding the behavior that people have developed in doing it. Does that make sense to you? And do you know how much energy it takes to redefine behavior? Listen, some of you have situations in your life you've been struggling with for 3 to 5 to 6 years, and you still haven't gotten over them. And the reason you don't is because of the fear you've associated with it. If you remove the fear, you expand your imagination. Educate your people on what is happening. Don't talk to them about what you need to change. You'll frighten them. Talk to them about how we're going to improve and what is improvement going to bring to us. Provide leadership, not inconsistency. Don't state it one day and then destroy it the next day with your behavior. You have to be persistently consistent because you're consistently persistent. You know how challenging that is to say? Step number 3. Look at any mistakes your people make on a consistent basis and make them your top priority. Look at this. Start with your biggest hurdles to sustaining a quality presence. The same mistakes not addressed means a lack of leadership. Let me play psychologist with you. A human can only make a mistake once. If that mistake is addressed and they continue to make it, it's not a mistake, it's a plan. And remember what I told you yesterday, all behavior has an agenda. Nothing's by accident. And do you think people will ever test you? I'm going to get biblical with you for a second. We're too quick to forgive. Forgiveness is not something you grant, it's something that someone earns through the improvement of their behavior. Any of you ever had this happen to you? Listen, I messed up. Will you forgive me? Yeah, I forgive you. They go out and do the same thing all over again. Will you forgive me? Yeah, I forgive you. Now you've just given permission to continue it. Forgiveness is not granted until it's earned. And it's earned through improvement. Now, there are a lot of people that have a challenge with that statement. To implement this, what do? Strong accountability must be in place. You understand the opposite of accountability is entitlement? You understand where accountability today is a word that a lot of people would like to take out of vocabulary? Washington, D.C. would love to take accountability out of vocabulary. But if there's no accountability, there's nothing wrong. I just cut an opening message this past week for a large convention in Australia where I'm going to be at their next convention. And my whole message was on accountability. If wrong is not wrong, then right is something that people laugh at. And we've got to get back in this society to accountability. Because if I don't hold you accountable, I give you permission. It's one of the challenges with young people today in homes. Parents don't hold their kids accountable. They make excuses for them. It's one of the real issues in business today. We don't hold people accountable. We just slap them on the hand or tell them don't do that again, and we give them permission to continue. If there's no consequence, there's no reason to improve. Take the mistakes apart and look at the behavior. I'll promise you this, every mistake that's made in your practice is because someone didn't care. Or they were moving so fast because of so many things you've put on them, they didn't have time to slow down and look. Excuse is not acceptable. You never accept an excuse from a person. You address everything as a concern that we need to address in order to improve. And in addressing it, I ask them to help me to improve it. Prepare your plan of action and implement it. Know what you need to do, commit yourself to doing it, and then don't talk yourself out of it. Do it. How many times in life have you had a plan, knew exactly what you needed to do, and fear came in, overrode the desire to do it, and you talked yourself out of it? And the thing just grew worse because every time you talk yourself out of it, it gains emotions. Step number 4. Understand the resistance factor and address it as the leader, and don't keep people who want to stay stuck in sameness. Don't keep them. Because let me tell you what happens. When you let them stay in sameness, they become the leader and you emotionally work for them. It's true in any area of life. If you want to grow, you got to get over the fear of losing people. When people come and they want to work with me, I ask them, are you comfortable losing people out of your life? Well, what do you mean? You can't grow and keep some of the people that are in your life. But Richard, what if it's my spouse? Which is more important to you? Accepting their behavior or challenging that behavior for improvement? What if you have a doctor and his spouse that work together and the spouse needs to be fired? You think that could ever happen? Do you think it affects their relationship when they go home? Because won't that build a wall between them? See, my rule of life is real simple. Never keep anyone in your life who's not part of your fan club. Anyone who's not in your fan club is your critic. How do we do this? Stay strong. Don't waffle with what must be done. Don't talk yourself out of it. Once you know it's the right step to take, once you know this is what has to be done, do it. Don't hesitate. Don't procrastinate because you'll talk yourself out of it. Treat this as improvement, not an option. If I want my practice to grow, there are certain things I have to do. This is one of them. It's not an option. Educate, don't simply explain. Challenge for some of you, you move so fast, you just try to explain things to people, you don't educate them, they don't understand it, so they keep doing it the way they used to do it because they don't understand what you've asked them to do. You think you ever get so busy being busy, you don't understand, you don't educate people on what's going on? Prepare to lose people who don't share a common agenda. You have got to overcome your fear of losing people, folks. There's always someone better. And I could give you story after story of companies that I've worked with who have lost someone they thought was quality, only to realize they were the enemy, but we looked at their performance, we didn't look at their behavior. And the real definition of who someone is in your life is their behavior, not their performance. I'll tell you something, there are a lot of negative people who are good at performing, but behind your back, they'll tear you apart. And then step number 5. Enhance your company by immediately addressing any behavior that is not aligned with improving your value. Accepting sameness is a result of a dysfunctional leader. Doctors, do you have anyone on your staff you should take to lunch and order theirs to go? Do you have anyone that you take home with you emotionally in your head? Do you have anyone who doesn't measure up to the standard of excellence that you want? Why in the world do you keep them if you really care about growing and developing your practice? Why do you keep them? Because you're fearful. You're fearful. Let me tell you something. Fear makes you do a lot of dumb things. How do we implement this? Stop and confront behavior. Don't wait. I tell you something, if I hesitate today, I'll procrastinate with tomorrow. Talk with authority. Don't lose your cool. Any of you have a temper? And by the way, if you lose your temper, will someone else find it? To be the owner, to be the leader, to be in charge, you got to stay cool, and you talk because this is right. And by the way, if you cannot accept my definition of right, you don't need to work here. Encourage your people to get on board. We're going to have a common purpose. We're going to have a common agenda. We're going to have a common commitment. And we're not going to build a team. We're going to build a partnership. And a team is not as strong as a partnership, because in most teams, we punish the strong by asking them to do more and reward the weak by letting them get by with less. In a partnership, everybody shares the same commitment. Everybody shares the same purpose. Everybody shares the same agenda. Prepare to move forward with greater value. This is where I am today. This is where I want to be tomorrow. I took a real hard look at my company. 35 years I've been doing this. And I realized something. If I don't make some decisions, we're going to start a circle of sameness. This is why we've rebuilt our website. Our website has so many things to it. And I challenge you, go take a look at it. And I want to continue to go forward. And to do that, I got to step out of my routines. I have a routine way of doing things. I got to step out of it. I have to. So I'm just going to put it in front of you again and just remind you of it, because I don't think some of you understand the value to this. This is about moving forward. These 5 steps about the cost, paying the price to improve, creating the focus, knowing what it is I want, planning the journey, how are we going to get there, taking the action, doing what's necessary without fear, and then finding the people that will grow with us. My morning minute. Give me 365 days of your life. Give me 365 minutes in your life, and I will help you make a difference. $579 for it by itself. And then you get the gifts of the 3 books. The Heart of a Leader, and man, you need to listen to this 100 times. And then my summer conference, August 1, 2, 3, the Western La Paloma in Tucson, Arizona. And that is a great room rate for what we're doing. The investment is $449. One of my best speaker friends says, Richard, you ought to put a 1 in front of that. It ought to be $1449 to be there because of the depth of the information you cover. We don't want to close anybody out. And there was the offer I gave you. The package plus 2 Star Maker registrations for $1379. All you do would be fill that out. You give it to us outside. Last thought. And you read this with a lot of emphasis. If you're not leading, you have very little value to your company. If you're not taking your company forward, you have very little value, which means you're the issue. And you need to do one of two things. Fire yourself. Get out of the way of the organization, your practice growing. Fire yourself. Or become the leader. It's not about what's happening around you. It's about you understanding where you are and what you need to do to move forward. So, what is your value as a leader? I'll tell you something. You know the answer. Food for thought. God bless you, folks. Thanks for letting me play in your head.
Great job.
Come on, let's hear it for Richard Flint.